Welcome back. Now to some rather sad news. We mentioned it very briefly yesterday. It's the death of one of the best-known astronauts of all time. There he is. That's Ken Mattingly. And he was going to be part of the Apollo 13 mission, which, of course, was the one that was so crippled in space. But because he couldn't go up, and we'll find out why in a minute, he was also probably the main brain behind how they managed to bring Apollo 13 back to Earth safely. The story and a tribute now from space adventurer Per Wimmer, who's a friend of the programme. It's lovely to see you again. He was 87, so he had a good innings, but he is such an amazing person, or he was, wasn't he?
Absolutely. He was one of the most decorated Apollo NASA astronauts, and he was loved by all his teammates, all 32 Apollo astronauts. He had an incredible career as an engineer. He was close to getting on Apollo 13.
Very close, but what happened?
Well, they feared he had the measles because he'd been training with Charlie Duke just days before, and Charlie got the measles, and they feared that it's probably not safe to put him up there in case of. He never got the measles, so he could have gone.
And he must have been shattered not to go on that mission.
He was honestly devastated afterwards. It really affected him psychologically.
So what happened with him when 13 got into trouble?
He was actually instrumental on the ground, guiding the NASA astronauts and the Apollo astronauts up there how to save energy. Because remember, the oxygen tank exploded. They had to move up into the lunar module, and they tried to sort of save energy as much as possible. And it was a little bit of simple engineering, but all of that was done on the ground. And he helped sort of communicate up to them what to do and how to save energy, and therefore they made it safely back to Earth.
And so they all bundled into a very small part of the craft, which then orbited Earth before it swung safely back.
Yeah, there they are landing there. People just didn't... I mean, that was one of those moments. You didn't know whether they were dead or alive. You didn't know whether the parachutes would open. But they did.
They did, yeah, exactly. They managed to. And Ken, actually, on the way back... during his mission, he actually did an EVA. But here on this one, he's on the ground. He's been guiding them, putting them into the lunar module. It's very cramped. It's only meant for 2 people. There were 3 in there, and then it just made into the main module afterwards as they went into the atmosphere.
And there's a great quote I'd like to read out. When he looked back on his experience, he said this: "One of the many lessons out of all of this is starting on day 1. It was from the very first moment, assume you're going to succeed and don't do anything that gets in the way of that. Think like a winner."
Isn't that a beautiful quote?
Yeah,
I mean, that's just an amazing quote, and that's what it takes. And a lot of these Apollo astronauts, they had that drive. They really took big risks on. They thought the glass is always half full, never half empty.
And those of us who are old enough to remember every second of it, it just shows how long ago it was, because he's 87, and most of the Apollo astronauts now in their late 80s already. But R.I.P. Ken Mattingly. It's time for one of your stories now.